All right, we're live. Welcome. How's it going, Rusty? Ron? Yo. Welcome, everybody. Glenn B. Made it on time. Right on, Glenn. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate everybody logging on here. Same time, Fridays. All right. TMC, or T McMahon. Boston, morning to Anthony in Hong Kong. Paul, what's up? Jim Gregory's here. Excellent. Boston representing Ron R. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, hey, Jeff Moore and Jody One. Excellent. For those of you joining for the first time, we have a handout, a PDF. If you expand the description below this video, there's a link to some tabs that we're going to go over tonight. Continuing in our series, the Chord Workshop. We've been getting deep into chords. And so, all right, Monroe Township, Jersey. Excellent. Right on, Rusty. Getting deep into chords, just showing all sorts of different types of chord progressions and showing some different chords that you may not have seen before. This is volume 3. So we started a couple weeks ago with volume 1, which sort of started at the beginning, major and minor chords, like just showing you some more of the simple kind of stuff, straight ahead foundational stuff. We've been sort of progressing as we've been going through this. So if you're new to the guitar, if you find that this material is maybe a little bit over your head, don't worry about it. Hang in there, okay? And but I do encourage you to check out the first volume of this and sort of work your way, kind of in order a little bit. Might make a little more sense. Melbourne, what's up? GOX Vox. All right. We got it from all over the world. We're going worldwide, everybody. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to bust out this PDF. And started off, I've been working on a song for Guitar Tricks. I'm going to film some stuff next week, and I'm doing some Rusty, everything's over his head. Harry, what's up from New Zealand? Welcome again. Good to see you. I'm working on a song for Guitar Tricks that we're going to film next week. We're filming a bunch of stuff. What's up, Peter? Welcome. But I'm doing a couple Sam Cooke songs, so I've been sort of in the soul R&B sort of zone a little bit. Zane, what's up? And John, hey, what's going on, man? Awesome. Okay, so I thought I'd dig into a couple of chord progressions that maybe sound familiar a little bit, but might give you some ideas as to what exactly is going on there, because they're not your typical sort of 1-4-5 chord progressions. Okay, we're sort of moving out of that a little bit into, this is volume 3, so we're expanding a little bit into some different types of chord progressions, different types of chords. All right. All right. Yes, excellent. Ron from Vegas, what's up? Cool. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. First example, 1A, rock soul progression a la Dock of the Bay. And so this is sort of in the key of G, but what happens is we get these chord substitutions that take us sort of out of the key a little bit with some different sounding chords. So for example, we've got, I'll just play sort of through this first line, this first progression here. Okay, so I think everybody sort of is familiar with that song a little bit, and familiar of the sound of that chord progression in that song. What's up, Craig from Melbourne? Excellent. Glad you're joining tonight. So we're starting off with just a G major bar chord. For those of you new to the guitar, you want to try and get your fingers around these bar chords as quickly as you can, right? Because it just opens up the fretboard. You can play chords in any key all over the neck, right? So third fret on the third fret is the first finger barring down. We got the 5th fret of the A and D, 4th fret of the G. Okay. And really trying to train those fingers to get on that nice and quick. This is just so indispensable, right? For guitar playing. So we are, in fact, in the key of G, but like I said, there's some chord substitutions in here that sort of throw a curve into things a little bit. So when we go up to B7, I'm using this voicing, which is also a bar chord shape, okay? You could alternatively do the B7 open shape, right? We learned the B7 is an open chord. This is a really cool voicing. But this other voicing I have in the tab is boring down at the 2nd fret from the 5th string all the way up, adding the 4th fret of the D and B strings. Okay, a little bit of different in the sound of those voicings, but unmistakably the flavor of B dominant 7th. And just to review, remember a dominant 7th chord, right? That's a chord that doesn't have, when the chord is written, it doesn't say, for example, B major 7 or B minor 7. Those are totally different chords. If you just see the note letter and the 7, that means it's a dominant chord, which means we have a major 3rd. It's a chord with a major 3rd, but a minor 7th. So it has a very specific sound. It's got kind of that bluesy sound, right? Comes from that, okay? All right. So in the key of G, you would expect... in the key of G major, you would expect the 3 chord, which is gives you a root of B. You would expect that to be a minor chord. And here we are playing a dominant 7th. Okay, so just contrast the sound of both of these progressions for a second. Okay, that progression where now I'm playing the B minor and the A minor in this progression, totally different sound, right? But those chords stay in the key of G, right? Because our 1 chord is major, but our 2 chord and our 3 chord are minor in the key of G, okay? Louisiana, what's up? Kermit, welcome. Okay, so what is happening here is we're making some sort of a chord substitution that temporarily steps outside the key of G, but still sounds like it's all tied together. It's a very specific sound. What's up, Edward? Howdy from California. Excellent. Okay, and same thing. Now, when we go to the C chord, it's a straight C major. You would expect that. In the key of G major, that would be the 4 chord, also major. So that all works. But then going down to the A, like I said, in the key of G, that would be an A minor regularly, but we're using a dominant 7th substitution. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail as to how to get those substitutions, but because it's sort of technical stuff with theory, and we could go a lot deeper with that kind of stuff, but I don't really want to do that right now. I don't want to lose the focus of just showing you some examples of just chord progressions with different types of chords. Okay, so you're just focus in, use your ears for the sound of those, because that's a very familiar sound. Secondary dominance, exactly, Anthony. That's sort of what we're talking about. You know, like when we get to the A, that's sort of the 5 of the 5 is what we're thinking, right? That sort of thing, okay? Not going to get into too much detail about that, but I want you to throw out the theory for now, like we talked a little bit about it, but just throw it out. And just focus your ear on the sound of that stuff. Okay? Very specific sound, very cool. And, you know, if you're very familiar with, you know, Dock of the Bay or, you know, sort of soul, this is sort of a typical rock soul sort of progression. So you can hear this in lots of other types of songs have chord progressions like this. So it's about getting the ear wrapped around them and knowing, oh yeah, so that's when you go to the 3 chord, but you make that substitution to do a dominant 7th, right? And you get that sort of Dock of the Bay sound. And then down to the 2 chord, which is also a dominant 7th. So it gives you just a very specific sound, really cool. So just mixing those majors and dominant 7th chords within the same chord progression, okay? I want to show you one little trick here too we can do on this. Is sort of those chromatic walk-ups, right? Right, when you walk up from A sharp, and then B on the root notes. It's more like the song, right? To the C chord. And chromatic back down from C, B, B flat, A, right? Another cool little trick is from the C, is to use the sixth shape within that C chord, which would be just the fifth fret of the D string, fifth fret of the B string. And those are common notes going down chromatically to land on your A7. So a lot of guys will play something like that. Okay, cool little move. Use the open chords too, right? Okay. What's up, Danny from Texas? Welcome, welcome. Excellent. So just showing you a few little variations there, but definitely that's like a sort of money chord progression that's used in a lot of songs. So you want to get your ears around that a little bit, be able to recognize those moves, right? Cool. So 1B takes it a little bit further. We have a lot of the same moves, but sort of expanding on it a little bit. So I've bumped it up to the key of A now, and I'm going to start on that A major bar chord, just a straight major bar chord shape root on the sixth string, right? And want to think about a different feel here. I've got like a triplet feel marked at the top of this. So we're sort of thinking that kind of thing. If you notice, the second beat of every bar has got, in the musical notes, it's got a little dot, either at the bottom of the group of notes making the chord or the top, talking about the top staff. That means staccato. So we're getting into a little bit of a groove of just... Okay, a little more of an R&B kind of strum approach. All right, so as you can see, I'm starting on A, and then the next chord is going up to a dominant seventh again at the ninth position, root on the ninth fret. That's a C sharp dominant seventh chord. Okay, so it looks just like a major bar chord, but you pull your pinky out and put that D string to whatever fret you're barring with your index finger. Okay. And that gives you a dominant seventh bar chord. So I've got, okay. So it's going 1 to 3 with that dominant seventh substitution. And then up to the D chords. Once again, the 4 chord. This time I'm playing them all with the root note on the low string. 10th fret, major bar chord, okay? Now I'm going down to B7. So that's the same move as what we were doing with Dock of the Bay, just up a whole step, right? And playing all those chords with the roots on the low string. So far I've got... Okay. Now let's go a little bit further. Now we go back to A. This is in bar 3. Okay. Yes, let's talk a little bit, Ron, about the staccato sort of thing. So what is staccato, right? What we're doing here is an R&B kind of thing where on the second and fourth beat, which is known as the backbeat, okay, it's usually where the snare drum hits, right? On the guitar, it's very common when you're playing off those backbeats to accent them and cut them off really quickly, which is what staccato means. You're making that chord cut off like a snare drum, if you think of it that way, kind of just a little choppy little percussive stab. Now check it out. What I'm doing to do that is I'm not using my strumming hand to cut off the chord. Okay. Once I lay in with that strum, I'm just lifting my fingers off the frets over here, but not off the strings. And that gives you sort of the ability to still mute the strings, right? So if I let go of it completely, you get some sympathetic ringing coming out a little bit, right? We want to hold that a little bit. So great little exercise, right? It's just these staccato little strums. Okay. I'm stretching it out a bit from the tab. Rusty, it's all good, man. It's all good. This will all all makes sense at some point, man. It'll swim around your brain a little bit and you'll start making connections the more you stick with guitar, right? It's all good, man. Try to cop some of these chords and some of these chord progressions. Dave, what's up from Nanaimo? Awesome. We got some Canada in the house. Excellent. All right, so in bar 3, or it's actually bar 7 on the handout, it goes back to A, and then F sharp dominant 7th. Okay. Back to B7, and then E dominant 7th, which is the 5 chord in the key of A, right? So that's okay. Okay. Let's look at that voicing we're using for E7 here. 7th fret of the A string, 6th fret of the D, 7th of the G, 5th fret of the B string. Okay. We saw that earlier last week as well, or last couple of weeks we were looking at that. Okay. And so let's take it so far. All right, and then I've got a little turnaround section right after that in bars 9 and 10. It goes back to A, to D. And this time I'm staying in the 5th position and grabbing the bar chord shape in with the root on the A string. So that's the 5th fret of the A, barring down on the 7th fret of the D, G, and B. Back to A, and then back to E7. So almost like a turnaround. You're doing a 1-4, 1-5 kind of turnaround there. So I just thought I'd include this. This is actually the chord progression from that Sam Cooke song. And really cool chord progression. Again, sort of that Dock of the Bay kind of thing, but it takes it a little bit further with more chord substitutions, more changes. Really cool stuff, right? All right. Hopefully I'm doing okay. Hopefully the stream's okay. Edward, I apologize if there's, I hope that's not originating on my end. Man, I'm just having nothing but, trying to get the routers working and all that stuff. By the way, everybody, cheers. Friday night, right? All right. So let's go up to exercise 2. All right. All good in Hong Kong. All good with Peter. Oh, it's not choppy for Kermit as well. Apologies, Edward. Don't know what's up. Yeah, that's right. The little snifter glass of water tonight, right? Just for you, my friend, out in Hong Kong. Okay, so we've got number 2, okay, which is a little bit of a jazzier style. I pulled this off. Hey, Erica, what's up? Jeff Moore, it is choppy in San Francisco. Unfortunate. Sorry about that. Good in Jersey, though. All right. Danny, I'll just go over that E chord one more time. So that's an E dominant 7th, okay? And it's just a little bit of a different voicing, actually. Thanks, Jody. All right, Jody 1 coming from, got a good stream there, too, okay? This is basically a C dominant 7th open chord. Right, if you learn a C7 from Mel Bay, it's one of the sort of first chords you'll learn. Okay, it's just basically a C chord with the 3rd fret of the G string added. Okay, so if you slide that up, so the root note is the 7th fret of the A. That gives you an E dominant 7th voicing you can use. So I'm just strumming from the A string to the B string. Okay? Because it's E, you actually could include the low E and high E because they're in the chords. If you wanted to, right? But in this case, I'm just keeping the chord a little more compact, a little less open sounding, okay? Right? Could you strum the open E? Yes, you could. You can do that, but you want to reveal the open D string. That's what makes it an E7. An E dominant seventh is just taking your finger off the second fret of the D and just leaving that D string open. But then you've still got the second fret of the A string, first fret of the G string. And that'll give you an E7. So you can do that as well. All right? Cool, cool. All right, next progression is jazzy, lifted directly from a jazzy kind of thing, lifted directly from a Led Zeppelin song, right? So want to show you some extended chords a little bit. Got it, Danny, right on. Yes, absolutely. C7, move it up to the 7th fret root. You got it. Oh, AT&T. Edward could be. Yeah, apologies. Like I said, doing the best I can on my end. It's Xfinity, so I have no idea. I'm just rolling the dice here. Okay, so exercise 2. We got this cool chord right here. 5th fret of the low string, 5th fret of the D string, 6th fret of the G string, 7th fret of the B string. You want to curl your finger so that the A string. Hey, what's up, Paul? Welcome. You want to curl so that that A string is not ringing out. In this case, it wouldn't be the worst thing because this is an A chord. There's already an A in it, but we're just talking about movable chord shapes. It's always good to sort of mute the open strings. This is known as an A13, so it has a specific... And what you're doing is you're taking an A dominant 7th and adding the 6th. And so when you add 6 to 7, you arrive at 13. The way that the chord is written is A13, okay? There's no major, there's no minor signifying in the chord name, so it must be dominant, which means that you've got, in this chord, you've got a root, a major third, a 5th, a minor 7th, and then whatever the 13 is, okay? So there's actually technically 5 notes in this chord, okay? What's up, James? Welcome. This particular voice, you see, once you get up into some of these are called extended chords, okay? And so they have a lot of notes in them, very rich sounding, right? But on guitar, we run out of fingers pretty quick, okay? So a lot of these voicings sort of will omit certain notes. Let's look at what the notes are in this chord. Root, flat 7, which is the G, that's the minor 7th, major third right there with the C sharp, and then the F sharp is the 6, which is the 13, okay? So all we got in this is root, minor 7th, major third, and the 13, okay? So there's no 5th, okay? But this is one of the most common voicings of a 13 chord, dominant 13 chord. So the full name of this chord is A dominant 13, just written A13, okay? What's our next chord? So we've got a little, we can strum up, groove on that. The first bar of this progression. The next one, E9. I can't remember whether or not we looked at the dominant 9 chord last week. We might have, but we'll refresh it right here. This is a super useful, common, cool extended chord right here. We are on bar 11 and 12. Bar 11 and 12. This is the extended chord progression. In bar 12, thanks, Edward. There we go. All right, we got it solved. Okay, so 7th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D, and then you bar down on the 7th fret of the top 3 strings. Right? This is a dominant 9th chord. Now, this particular voicing actually contains all the notes that make up a dominant 9th chord. Let's have it is a little tough on a 12 string. Jody 1, man. That would be a lot of chords are tough on a 12 string, let's be honest. Okay? You're not making it easy on yourself. All right, so root, minor major third, root third, which is major, flat 7. The 9 is right there on the B string, and then the 5th up top. So you've actually got all of the notes that make up a dominant 9th chord with this particular voicing. So if we put it together in this chord progression, some of you classic rockers might recognize this progression. So pretty cool sound, really complex, colorful kind of sound. That's a hallmark of extended chords. Yes, Jim, Gregory, you got it. Okay. That's a hallmark of extended chords. We've got rich chord voicings that offer a lot of color. Okay. Oftentimes these are like sort of jazzy chords, because in jazz they love the extended chords, right? And just make the chords sound really interesting and colorful. Okay, so a cool thing with this particular voicing in the key when you use it on A is that you can forego holding down the A and go to the open, and then just worry about 5, 6, and 7 on the D, G, and B. You can actually bar down on the 5th fret of the B string. And if you're just strumming from the A string through the B string, you can just sort of embellish hitting that A13 back to what would be just an A dominant 7th chord. Okay? And just kind of embellish like that. So you can actually include that high A note because that's the root of the chord, right? And then a really common embellishment on the dominant 9th, this voicing, is to reach out with your pinky on the top string. Not playing so well tonight, but there you go. You get the idea. So just some ideas there. Cool sounding, a little jazzy sort of progression on that one. But introducing this idea of extended chords, okay? And it's where we start stacking other notes from the scale onto the chord that we've already built. In this case, a dominant 7th chord, adding notes on top of it, okay? That's what this example is showing, okay? All right, Paul, can you talk about slash chords? Yes, just learned about D over F sharp, going with G and the pinky and on the B, going from G with the pinky on the B is pretty cool. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So a lot of times, like there's sort of, I'll kind of answer it now because it's part of the discussion a little bit about chords. And we did talk about this previous week. Right on, Jeff. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Erica, as far as the pinky doesn't have a brain of its own, it's always the weakest one. So you got to train it as best you can. Just really work on exercises, getting it involved in as much as you can to strengthen it and program it and get it a little bit looser on the fretboard. So slash chords are also called piano chords. And you can sort of think of them as left hand, right hand if you're a piano player, right? And the way that they're written is you've got the chord, the actual chord, and then slash, and then whatever the root note is. So it's actually really useful sometimes it's really useful to call chords that. For example, really cool chord I like would be something like a G over A, G slash A. Check it out. I've got 5th fret of, so I've got a G triad right here. 5th fret of the D, 4th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, okay? And if I add the low A note, 5th fret of the low string onto that triad, you've got a G over A. And it's something that you can kind of look at a chart and kind of know right away. Oh, G slash A. So it's a G chord with an A in the bass. So you do it like that with the open string, or do it with, whoops. Playing like crap tonight. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Another really cool chord that you kind of have to sit there and think about for a while to like, oh, well, what notes are in this? It's like A, it's G, it's B, it's D. So there's lots of like notes stacked in relation to A that you kind of have to do a lot of math to think out what is the actual chord name of this. Whereas it's just super easy to think G with an A in the bass. Okay, so a lot of chords are shown that way on notations and whatnot, just because like if you sort of named the chord from the root, it would just be overly complicated. Okay, so in the case of D/F sharp, it's just telling you, okay, you've got a D up top and you've got that F sharp in the bass. And you already know that F sharp is part of D major, so it's like a D major inversion. Okay, but this particular chord, the D/F sharp chord, okay, and also you could also think of it as this one right here as well. With the D/F sharp, as I think what you meant to say, if we play a D sus4 and then an F sharp on the bass, what chord is that? So yeah, that's a D sus4 / F sharp, right? Yeah, I mean, it's doable. It sounds a little weird. Yeah, it's sort of total. I can see like Stone Temple Pilots use a chord like that in a song. I can't think of a song that uses that, but it sounds like something that could be a cool passing chord, right? It's really rich sounding. So you can totally do that. Yeah, Oasis, right? That kind of stuff. Cool. Well, I hope that clears it up a little bit about piano chords. They're shown in notation a lot. I just think the bottom line is that it's just sort of easier to understand what's happening. If it's just simply already a chord that, you know, a major chord or a minor chord with a different bass note, then it's really easy to understand what's happening with that chord rather than try to, you know, figure out the theory as to how they named it against the root note. Okay, let's move on to exercise 3, bar 13 and beyond. This is from bars 13 to 18. Diminished 7th chord. So I took this example from, you know, we had a lot of cool discussion last week about songs with diminished chords in them. And one of them that came up was My Sweet Lord, George Harrison, which unfortunately is no longer on Guitar Tricks. But this is sort of a chord progression taken from that. It's not the whole chord progression, not the whole song, but... Okay. Starting off with an open E and then going to C sharp minor. So right away, your first clue might be that we're in the key of E, because that could be a 1 chord, and that would be the relative minor, which is the 6 minor. So that fits. Okay. Ron R, just curious, why does a song get removed that's already there? Well, if you think about Netflix, that, you know, it's the same sort of thing. They negotiate licensing agreements, and there's a term for that license agreement. And unfortunately, they were not able to come to a renewal agreement with some of the songs. So they had to be removed from the site, which is a total drag, but we're doing our best to create new song tutorials and keep, you know, as much as we can what's already there, right? So it really comes down to publishers. So yeah, that's how it works. All right. Guitar Tricks always have tried to do things like, you know, the super legal way instead of just putting up songs and hoping that they don't get a copyright claim against them. They go to the publishers and make sure they have an agreement. So unfortunately, those agreements run out after a while. Okay, so we go to C sharp minor and we back to E. Okay. Do they come back sometimes? That's a good question, Jim. I'm not sure that they have. I feel like maybe some Hendrix has come back. Hendrix went away a while. This is years ago. Hendrix got pulled, all the Hendrix stuff we had, but maybe some of it came back, I feel like. But that would be the only example I can think of. So I'm not sure. I really not the guy to ask as far as that goes. All right. Going to the G sharp diminished 7th chord. Okay, this is a cool chord voicing right here. Then you're going to go to C sharp 7. We've seen this bar chord shape with the root on the 5th string before, barring down on the 4th fret, starting from the A string all the way up, 6th fret of the D and B strings, and then landing on F sharp minor. Okay, so and then up to B. Okay, B major from F sharp minor. It is. So yeah, this is from the George Harrison song. So okay, so I just took this sort of chunk of the chord progression just to show you some interesting moves that happen here. And it's a great example of using a diminished chord in a song, right? You have to pay George Harrison now. Yeah, I mean, let's hope that, YouTube doesn't give us a copyright strike. I don't know, the bots are out or what. Anyway, so let's have a look at this diminished seventh shape, okay? This is a really fun shape. Third fret of the D string, fourth fret of the G, third fret of the B, fourth fret of the high string. Now, what's really cool about the diminished seventh chord, once you have the shape, you can find all the inversions of this chord 3 frets up or down. So in this case, G sharp is on the 4th fret of the high string. Okay? If we move it up 3 frets to the 6th and 7th fret, that's also G sharp diminished 7th. Okay, where's the G sharp in this case? Right here. Now that note flipped to the D string. Let's go up 3 more frets. Where's the G sharp? 9th fret of the B. Okay? So it's something about the construction of the diminished 7th chord that it just so happens that the same shape, 3 frets up or down, Scooby-Doo, right? I hear this every once in a while. If somebody gets on a diminished chord and then just pulls this move, moving up 3 frets, just to add some motion onto it, right? You kind of do something like that, right? Yeah, exactly, Ron. Okay, pretty cool. It also works on the other, it just also happens to work on this particular shape. Let me use it in the case of C sharp diminished 7th. 4th fret of the A, barring down at the 3rd fret of the D, G, and B, and adding the 5th fret of the D and B string. This shape, it's the same thing too. You can do it with that shape as well. Okay, so there's 2 chord shapes for the diminished 7th chord where you can go up and down 3 frets and kind of get that sound, right? So anyway, cool little trick, right? Rusty, I have problems achieving chords that are 3 different frets. Arthritis. Yeah, it's unfortunate that sort of we get these ailments later on and that prevent us from doing some of this stuff. So you just got to work like crazy to try and find a workaround. Try and hit as much of the chord as you can. The great thing about the guitar is that all the notes are in so many different spots on the fretboard that some of those shapes, the exact same chord can be played with different shapes depending on where you are on the fretboard. So I would just encourage you to try and, if there's something that's really hard for your fingers to hit, try it in a different position on different strings, and that'll use different fingers, and you might come across a chord voicing that is a little bit easier for you to do. But yeah, that's an unfortunate physical ailments preventing that kind of stuff, kind of sucks, right? So, but there's always, most of the time there's some sort of workaround that we can try and figure out, right? Cool. All right. So that's the George progression, or George Harrison sort of progression. And if you want to get into a little bit of theory about this, we're in the key of E, and then sort of out of nowhere, you get a G sharp diminished 7th, going to a C sharp dominant seventh, going to the F sharp minor. And you can think of this actually, you know, in sort of the way that Anthony McSee, we were talking about secondary dominance. You can actually think about this as if you just isolate the F sharp minor chord, which is just it's the 2 chord in the key of E, right? So F sharp minor, that fits E major, right? But if you just think about F sharp minor for a second, and if you temporarily make that the 1 chord, like when you land on this chord, you're landing on the 1 chord, then it fits. It actually fits that G sharp diminished 7th to C sharp dominant 7th is actually a 2-5-1 in the key of F sharp minor, which we talked a little bit about last week, where in jazz, jazz is all about doing 2-5-1s like kind of everywhere, okay? So this is how you could sort of explain what's happening here. He's setting up a move, right, from the E major to go to F sharp minor, right? But he added in like a 2-5-1 to F sharp minor, you know, in relation to F sharp minor, right, to make it really interesting. So it's a really cool sort of device to get more rich chords in there. Don't worry if you don't understand that so much right now. You know, there's always some sort of way to explain, you know, with the theory, some sort of substitutions. But again, it's just something that sounds cool and it works great. Okay. Cool. All right. Exercise 4, a progression with an augmented chord. So we haven't talked about augmented chords yet. And when you think about the 4 types of 3-note chords, there's 4 major categories. There's your major chord, your minor chord, you know, root, 3rd, 5th chords. And then we have augmented and diminished chords. And they're all a tweak on the major minor chords. So for example, the diminished chord is a root, 3rd, 5th, but the 5th is flatted or minor, right? So it's a root, major 3rd, diminished is root, minor 3rd, minor 5th, right? So an augmented chord is actually a root, major 3rd, and a sharp 5th, okay? So typical progression, and I grabbed this sort of, this is funny, this is sort of a John Lennon song that I'm not sure we still have on Guitar Tricks, has this progression here. And okay, so we've got A major, and I'm playing it, I'm gonna play all this stuff with, you know, kind of riding on the open A string as sort of the root. And I'm going to change the notes on this upper chord. I'm starting with A major, 7th fret of the D, 6th fret of the B, of the G, sorry, 5th fret of the B. Okay? Okay? If I sharpen the 5th on that, that's going to give me an augmented triad right there. Right? Here's the major triad. I sharp the 5th, which is at the 5th fret of the B. You get that movement, okay? Next chord, okay? This is an A6. So I've gone from the sharp 5 to the 6th and added that to the A major. Okay, so you get this motion. And where do we go next? We go to this one, add the 8th fret. So now you're going to a dominant 7th chord, right? That's the flat 7, right? So cool little walking motion. This is a really pleasing, adventurous chord progression that's riding out. You're just changing the quality of the A chord as you go. Okay? And then from there, you've got the A7 basically. Go to the 4 chord, which is D major. And another cool move there is to do the minor 4, right? We're on the major 4, the 4 chord in the key of A is D major. And a minor 4 is another cool little trick that is used a lot of times just to create sort of a different sound and give a cool change in a chord progression, right? So putting that all together, you hear this. Okay, really cool chord progression. You can kind of hear that moving through, and just hearing some colorful notes kind of walking up and down a little bit. And so you'll see that in some songs as well. I think of Roy Orbison a little bit when I hear sort of that sound of a chord progression. All right. Cool. Anthony McSee, from melodic minor or harmonic minor scale? Yeah, I wasn't really referencing either of those scales right now. In the previous example, maybe. In that George Harrison, I don't really see how that. I was talking about going 2-5-1 in a minor key, which would just be the natural minor scale, right? Those chords, if you had an F sharp natural minor scale. Oh, for no augmented chords in major or minor scales. Yeah, correct. Well, I mean, as far as the chords that are created, right? The chord set in any given key is, yeah, we don't have any augmented chords in those, but yes, melodic minor modes and harmonic minor modes, chord sets might have them. Yeah, I think you're right. That's way beyond my my theoretical sort of background, anyways. So, but I think I get your point with what you're talking about there. So, excellent. All right. Okay, so now we've got the augmented chord. No, totally, Anthony, all good. I totally get where you're coming from now. Yeah, there's no augmented chord in the chord sets for a major or minor key. Exactly. All right, so here we go. A little bit of funky kind of stuff. We haven't really done a lot of funk. Just using sus4s on dominant seventh chords. So, sorry. Okay. It's kind of what we're going for here. So this is bars 25 and 26 on the handout, okay? And we've got 7th fret of the D, 9th fret of the G, 8th fret of the B, 10th fret of the high string. That gives you sus4. If you bring the pinky down to the 9th fret, that's an A dominant 7th shape. It's actually a really useful shape, okay? And if you just move your pinky up 1 fret, you're replacing the 3rd in the chord, which is a major 3rd, to the 4th. You're replacing it with the 4th. That makes it a suspended 4th. And so for those of you that didn't catch volume 1 or volume 2, the sus chord simply replaces the 3rd with either the 2 or the 4. That's where we get sus2 and sus4 from. And so this is a really, in funk type of playing, this is a really useful sort of sound going between the sus4 to the dominant 7th. I should say the dominant 7th sus4 to just the straight dominant 7th. So that's for A right there. Now let's look at the strumming pattern a little bit, because this is a really common sort of 16th note strumming pattern where we're going to do, much like how we lifted off the chords, off the frets, to hold the strings. While we're strumming, we get that muted chick sound, or that muted strumming sound, right? Or that's what we're going for. So down up strums. But a lot of times what will happen with 16th note strumming is that you get some syncopation. So you can see that we're pressing down on the chord, and then doing 2 muted strums and then pressing down on the chord again. And that creates, like, sometimes we're going to hit it on a downstroke. Other times we're going to hit the chord on an upstroke, right? Because we want to keep this going, okay? Right? All right, so there's another thing. I keep hitting the open A string. So do you notice that I kind of have my index finger, I'm hitting that A note, 7th fret of the D, but I have it up a little bit higher, so I can kind of mute, it's just touching the A string, right? And the other thing I'm doing is just trying to contain my strum to the top 4 strings. So both of those things are sort of what you have to pay attention to. Hey, thanks, Charlie boy. I super appreciate that. Awesome. Okay, this is a great, slow this one down and really try to keep this going, okay? And then work on just pressing down that chord shape when you need those accents to happen. So. All right, so I just did the same exact sort of move, just moving it down a whole step or 2 frets down to G7 sus4 to G7, okay? Killer, work on your groove with that, but also just a killer simple chord progression that sounds great for kind of a funky rock kind of thing, right? Or just a straight up funk thing, right? Also, but right before I leave the funk, remember the dominant ninth shape, which we're going to talk about actually right now. But dominant ninth is awesome for funk, like that kind of funk strumming, right? If you take that, we talk about it E9, right? The E dominant ninth voicing there. Use a little bit of chromatic sort of 1 fret slide up to it. Right, really fun to kind of just strum and work on that kind of stuff as well. All right. Time is flying, man. Time is flying when we're having fun. Thanks for everybody for staying tuned and working through it with me. All right, so bar 27, bar 28. I'm gonna just show you some blues ninth chords. We already talked about the 9 shape. Ron, can you funk on the acoustic? Of course, absolutely. Yeah, man, do it. It's a little bit harder maybe, but yeah, get on it. All right, so interesting chord voicing right here. So I'm doing A dominant 9 with the root on the low string, okay? Again, curling my finger around to mute the A string because this is a movable chord, so we don't want any open strings. And then you've got the shape up top, 5th fret of the D, 4th fret of the G, 5th fret of the B. Okay? And that's could be your 1 chord, right? For a blues, instead of just a dominant 7th, the dominant 9th gives it a little extra extended sound. Just grooving on it, right? You move to the 4 chord, you go to that dominant 9th. It's time for D9, right? Same voicing we were just talking about with the root on the A string. Right? Now, if you look in bars 29 and 30, exercise 6B, a typical blues embellishment. Check out what you can do with these upper chord shapes. Now, we've heard that sound a lot, right? That sounds pretty familiar, hopefully. Stormy Monday kind of thing, or tons of blues songs would have that kind of embellishment. You're just basically jamming on the root. And those upper voicings of the dominant 9th chord, slide it up 2 frets. Okay. Okay, so anyway, I only tabbed out just this little move, right? Okay, Stormy Monday kind of thing. Great little embellishment. And finally, our final exercise for tonight, example pop progression. I sort of think a little bit of, all right, now we're into Friday. Stormy Friday. Hopefully not where you're at. Anyway, I was thinking more like that. This isn't directly from a song, but I was sort of thinking about, sort of those piano chords from, like a piano type pop song, like Carole King kind of style a little bit. So I've got. Thank you, Paul. Yes, smash that like button. Isn't that what they say in the socials? Anyway, let's have a look. Okay, C major 7. I think we saw this particular chord voicing last week. Again, barring down on the 3rd fret, starting from the A string all the way up, adding the 5th fret of the D and B string, and then middle finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G string. Okay, that's a very typical C major 7 voicing. Okay, now check out this major 7 voicing, which is pretty cool. You can use your pinky or your ring finger, got the 3rd fret of the D and just barring down, 5th fret of the top 3 strings. Okay, so a lot of times I'll just grab it with the pinky, but of course you can get it with your ring finger if you'd like. Okay, this is basically in the key of C, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. And then a cool voicing that we haven't seen yet, talking about these extended chords. This is a minor 9, D minor 9. So basically you've got this F major 7, and you're just adding a D on the bass. Turns out that this particular slash chord, which would be F major 7 / D, I guess you could call the chord that. This is one of the instances where the actual name of the chord is easier, D minor 9. Okay, got the D note, flat 3rd, flat 7, the 9, and the 5th. Okay, really cool sound. From, think about it compared to a minor. If you're coming from F, right? Let's change it this time. Really cool. Just adds a little extra something to tie that together a little bit, right? So there you go, D minor 9. All right. Cool. Well, that's what I had prepared for tonight. Hey, Medicine Hat, Daryl, what's up, man? My home province of Alberta. Hope all is well there. All right. Well, yeah, thanks, everybody. We got a couple minutes. If you got any quick questions, so in Medicine Hat. Hate to hear that, man. Hang in there, all right? All right. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Thank you, Anthony. Any tip on the best multi-effects pedals for intermediate players? Oh, my goodness. The choices are endless, aren't they, these days, Charlie boy? I love my Axe effects. I love the fractal, but it's a little pricey, right? But they have a floor unit that's killer. That's like $1,000. If you want to go lower than that, you can't go wrong with the Boss stuff. I've used Line 6 for years. That's great, especially just for effects. Like the HX effects unit is killer. Had that for a while. Yeah, even the Boss. What would the whatever that one is? That's just I can't remember what it's called. The multi effects Boss unit. That's like a couple $100. Is killer too, and it's got all the knobs on it, right? So yeah, I don't know. Open up a whole can of worms with that one, Charlie boy. Don't know what to. Yeah, the GT1000 includes the modeling, but I'm actually thinking of the $200 one. That's it's just mostly for effects, I feel like, and it's not all menu driven. It has like specific sections on the board with actual knobs. Like it saves presets and stuff, but you've got like rotary knobs and all that kind of stuff. All right. Great lesson. Jody 1, thank you. Check out the Boss Katana. There you go. A +1 for Boss Katana as well. Jeff, thanks for that suggestion. Dave Kinsey, thank you for being here. Right on. Volume 4 next week. No, we're going to break it up next week. We're going to go back and do just a general guitar workout. I think we're up to volume 20. Next week will be a guitar workout. Maybe we'll come back and do another. I think maybe I got another volume of the chords. Maybe I'll do it the week after, volume 4. Name it after the Sabbath album, right? So, yeah, we'll do chords volume 4 in a couple weeks, but next week will be the guitar workout, volume 20. And RP7, there you go. If you want to go Digitech, you know, all this stuff nowadays it's pretty amazing what it all can do effects wise. So, you know, just I'm a fractal guy, so I mean, I'm like done as far as all that stuff goes because it just kills me every day. It's just killer. So I love it, but I realize that's more of a sort of pricier option. Kermit, thank you. Jeff Moore, thank you. Anthony, we'll see you next week. Peter, thank you. Andre, maybe band someday. Rakes too. Oh yeah, we'll do some rakes. Right on. Okay, everybody, take care. And we'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody.